Welcome back to the Nullified Take, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Survivor 42. Myself and Jake here, we've been talking about Australian Survivor this whole season, but we're joined by an alumni from Survivor South Africa, and I've even got the buff out today. Survivor South Africa Immunity Island alumni, Dino Paulo. Dino, how you doing?
Hey, Chris, good to see you again, man. I'm well, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, great. Jake, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Finally, I get to talk about my home country's own Survivor, Survivor 42. So it should be good. I'm excited.
Rare treat so far. We've only been talking about Australian Survivor, but it's really good to have Survivor 42 back on the screen. And do you know, we didn't get to talk about Survivor 41 at all last season. And I'm quite interested to know, what was your thoughts as someone that played the show before, someone that is a big fan of the show, probably as big as myself, or even bigger now that you can say you've played it and you're a big fan. What was your thoughts on Survivor 41 and the direction that the show has gone into in this new era?
So I am ever the eternal optimist, and I'm always like take the good out of things. So I enjoyed 41. I really enjoyed the cast. I thought casting is great. I think it was like a really inclusive cast with some phenomenal characters. And although I do prefer a 39-day Survivor um, as a fan and probably as a player, I think that production did well with what they were given. Filming under COVID conditions is tough. To get a full-on production out there without COVID, well, with COVID in the way, is incredibly difficult. And I think they did a phenomenal job. And although it's purists might not be ecstatic with the direction the show's going, they are doing what they can to try to keep it fresh and fun, and I appreciate that. So long as they take some sort of feedback on board and keep like the fans in mind, I don't mind them trying new things. And I think a couple of those things landed. Some of them maybe missed, but on the whole, I enjoyed the season mostly because of the cast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you probably wish that the hourglass that Erica smashed meant that you could go back and play Immunity Island again and win the show.
Yeah, I mean that would have been great, right? So like I looked at that hourglass, I was like, I didn't like the twist so much, but I was like, but if I was a player, man. But to be fair, I probably wouldn't have been sent out there anyway. So I mean, it wasn't going my way anyway.
Yeah, Jake, we get the premiere episode here. We hear that it's going to be a lot of the same things that we saw last season, and obviously these castaways that are playing Survivor 42, they're unaware as to what the twists are that are going to be ahead of them, and quite a few of them got a shock early on when they realized that they were going to play this game without any rice.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that like Jeff has kind of broken the fourth wall and saying like, yeah, we filmed 2 seasons back to back, where like that's always been the case, but he's only now bringing it up because of all of the advantages and crazy twists that it's kind of inevitable that he's going to have to mention it. So it is interesting because that's been the norm for the past 22 years. But
Hmm.
yeah, no food. I do like that twist that they're bringing back from last season. It is kind of weird that they're saying it's the hardest season when they said that last time. So are they like both the hardest season? Is which one's I don't know.
I
It's
think it's the format. I think he's trying to allude to this format being 26 days without any food, any rice. Dino, as someone who's played this game before, you guys had the basic necessities when you were out there. How difficult would it be if you didn't even have rice or you didn't even have that basic necessities? Because obviously you would know better than us how much pain you had to go through starving out on a beach, I should say.
So that's the one sad thing for me about like a shorter runtime that US has got compared to Australia. Not that Australia's edit is phenomenal in my mind, but like the audience will never really grasp how tough that is. Taking away like your basic necessities,
Hmm.
um, it is terrible. Like our season Immunity Island, there was quite a bit of food. It was because of the wet and the cold, so to keep people from like going hypothermic. But even with that, people struggled with food. Personally, I was never there for the food, and I'm always like optimistic. So I was like, the more everyone suffers, the bigger the gap between me and them. So it was like an advantage in a way, but it really affects you physically, psychologically. It is hard. So I'm well aware that when Jeff says it's tough, and I'm well aware that when they aren't getting any food, um, the body's suffering, and that doesn't translate so well on TV. And I wish there was a way to get it across, but there's never a way because in any tough moment, like if you're seeing a wet, rainy night, you're seeing 1 minute of it on TV and it's over for you. But if you're sitting there in the wet and the rain and it's been like, if it's one long night, 14, 15 hours even, or it's been 3 days straight that you've just been sitting in this, it is not that 1 minute that people see on TV that it's like now over. It's taxing, hugely taxing. And the same with the food, you're seeing them on day 3 do an immunity challenge, but we kind of forget, yes, we know in the back of our minds that they haven't had rice, but we haven't seen them not having rice or seen them discussing not having rice or felt that feeling of 3 days without food after coming out of a hotel where you've been fed every day, and normal life. So it makes a huge difference. And I just wish that would come across stronger for the viewer so that they could really feel that pain and that deprivation.
Yeah, and for me personally, I don't find enjoyment out of seeing people starve out on the island, Jake. I think that it's a good thing that you don't give them everything. I don't want them to be sitting there having ice cream all the time and burgers, and then I'll watch Big Brother rather than watching Survivor. I mean, there has to be a survival element to it, but I do think that when you take the basic necessity of rice, just something as basic as that away, 1 cup of rice a day, you take that away, you get people completely turning into zombies throughout this game. And for me, I would much rather have somebody that at least has a little bit of an ability to make strategic gameplay moves because their body and their mind is not shutting down due to this deprivation in food. And I actually think it takes away from the enjoyment. How do you feel about this, Jake? Do you think that we need to go to this point where we're actually completely taking everything away from them? They don't even get a cup of rice in the show?
It's hard, unlike Dino, I haven't played Survivor, so it's hard to say. Like, I can only imagine how hard it is, but I understand they're just trying to make something fresh. And I think that with Winners at War, maybe they were like, they're a bit too well off out there, and so they just wanted to try something new. But I think I would be losing my mind out there with lack of food, and then all of these crazy twists. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen at any point. Like, I think that is what would drive me crazy. Not just the lack of food alone, but the combination of the two would be crazy. But I understand, like I said, that they got to do something fresh, but I have a feeling that they're going to stray away from that in 43 and 44.
I do think so. And I think that's why Jeff made a point out of saying, we shot this back to back, because he heard a lot of, he says he doesn't listen to the tweets and he doesn't care, but I do think Jeff does care somewhat of what some of the fans think. And I think he has taken some of that feedback on board in the off season. And he wanted to make a point out of saying, hey, listen, this is back to back. We couldn't change anything in these 2 seasons. There's going to be a lot of things that you saw in the previous one. But I will say, we're critical as fans, Dino, when we don't like twists. I think Survivor fans are almost as difficult to please as Star Wars fans. It's very difficult to please Star Wars fans, right? It's the same for Survivor fans. But the one thing I did like this episode was the twist in the very first challenge, where they now have this amulet of power that comes into the game, and it kind of puts a hit on other people in the game because they have to decide to work together, and they know that this amulet that they've got gets stronger and stronger when other people get eliminated in the game, and it can turn into a full immunity idol. I thought that was a really creative twist. There was a little bit of Jeff's wacky circus, things like the phrases coming in here with having to get mud and blood on them before they went back. Funny enough, I'll indulge, Jeff, but overall I thought this was a really cool twist to what would have been a pretty boring and straightforward opening challenge.
Yeah, I thought the twist is great. And although I thought, why would you want to put blood on yourself initially? I was like, no, hold on. This is great because castaways have just hit the beach. There's this overwhelming range of emotions that castaways experience. It's now your chance to step up for your tribe and do the first thing you get to do for your tribe. You get there, your mind's an absolute mess at this stage, right? And that was definitely production trying to trip people up with the blood in particular, because here you're going oh, here's this great thing, and production's going, use blood, use mud, and instead of thinking about the consequences of that and going how am I going to lie about this? Do we come together and have this believable lie that we can all tell about this thing? It's there goes was it high, just been wiping blood all over the show without thinking of consequences, whereas Drea is actually going, putting mud on, thinking about the sad, making it look believable, and you go ooh, there's in that moment of absolute pressure, you see this difference in thought process and maybe a cool, calm, collected head that makes a really well thought out decision comparative. So I liked the amulet and the way and the mechanics behind this advantage, and like you say, the way it's both useful to them and it's a bonding agent, but it's also a good reason to target each other, and it's going to be like who pulls the trigger first. But the bump steer that they added with the whole like blood in the mud, I thought it was very clever, and I really enjoyed it. And again, that brings a bit of fun to the show that we look for as an audience.
Yeah, I was laughing so much when Lydia said to Hi, you're bleeding so much, and I was thinking to myself, a sane person would have said, are you cut? Where's the scratches? None of that came up. I mean, later on, if you inspected Hi, you probably would have seen that blood came from somewhere, but it wasn't really his blood, or like whose blood is it? What's going on? But it's like a bit of a murderer mystery that we see here early on in the season. We do find out, obviously, that you're going to get one of the tribes, I believe it was the blue tribe, who ultimately won this challenge. They get the flint upright, but then we get both the green, and I'm going to stay with the colors because I can't remember all these tribe names. There's been too many over the years. If you guys wanted a factual tribe name, go listen to Rob as a podcast, because I know those guys will be on point with it. But the green team and the orange team, as they will be known in this podcast, they end up having to do the extra challenge to get the basic necessities: a machete, a pot, and a flint. Now, do you know, as someone that's played this game before, if you don't have a machete, a flint, and a pot, how far does that put you back as a tribe?
No, incredibly far. It is near impossible, right? So machete does so much for building shelter and firewood. Flint, obviously fire, and pot only if you have rice. They don't have rice at this stage, and they don't have fire, so the pot's not going to have a huge impact on them, but you're going to have to earn that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to cook the basics for yourself. You're not going to be able to cook anything, unless you're catching fish and then like skewering it over fire, which you don't have the means to catch fish now either. So it's pretty debilitating to not have those things. And I do like, particularly because the season is a shorter season. So I know we were talking about the food deprivation and whatnot, but I think a lot of that has to do with the shortened season and getting people to that point of deprivation a little bit quicker. I do like that people have to work harder for everything that they get, So bringing Sweat to Savvy back, I thought was cool. I was a bit disappointed that it was the same combination, but I did like the fact that they made it a bit more tricky and less one-sided and less obvious to go for the barrel, which was cool. But then, we see both tribes go for the triangle. So you really want to see like one tribe go for the one and one tribe go for the other, and you can see how they like where the payoff is and who made the better decision. But I think it's a hard balance to find. But yeah, I do really like that the tribes have to work incredibly hard, because if you got that decision wrong and you didn't have that flint, machete, and pot, sure, like everyone would be out for each other because somebody would have messed up and it would have been absolute chaos.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. It's one of the reasons why Survivor as a concept has worked for 40 plus seasons. If you count the international ones, nearly 70 seasons now. It's the fact that you can get different people playing the show different times, and they take different decisions at the beginning. And it was interesting. Last season, we had both tribes go for the pot. This time it was going to be one person instead of two. They didn't see the puzzle before they decided if they wanted to do the puzzle and go out and do the pot. And just those small twists or changes to the mechanics of the game made people choose something differently here early on. Now, I do want to go to you, Jake. We get to the tribes and we start getting to know these different people. And I should have loaded this up a little bit easier, a little bit of a cheat here. Blue tribe is Ika, orange tribe is Taku, and then the green tribe is Vati. Let's start over with Ika first, Jake. We get quite a lot of action there with the younger crew specifically seeming to bond, and then the older crew bonding there as well. Who impressed you within the Ika tribe here in the first episode, and why?
I thought the blue tribe overall was kind of a mess. They each kind of had their own negative moments. Roxroy ultimately got his way with the vote, but he did come off as very, demanding and kind of overbearing to his tribe mates, which is, not good. That can get pretty grating pretty quick. Romeo ultimately lost someone that could have been an ally to him. Tori, had kind of it was either her or Zach, and luckily it was Zach for her. I think maybe Drea stood out to me the most just because she was able to get two advantages, which is crazy in one episode. Yeah, she just really, really struck gold with just the luck of it all, like winning the rock, paper, scissors, I believe, to go to the island. And then they just happened to choose her to go to that portion of the challenge. But yeah, she played it really well. And not only that, but not only does she have advantages, but I think she seems to be a capable social player. So that combination is going to be deadly moving forward.
I see it slightly different to you guys, probably. I feel like maybe, Dino, you're going to be high on Drea as well. I saw you nodding there. I actually think Drea's in trouble somewhat in this specific tribe, and the reason, I know Twitter is super high on her as well. I could be the one that's completely on my own take here. This is the nullified take for a reason. But, at the end of the day, Drea, for me, played very aggressively very early on, and she already tried to make a target out of Tori. She was happy to cut Roxroy very early, who she's supposed to work with in a tight alliance. And if I was Romeo, or if Roxroy finds out that Drea was coming for him, I would just be thinking to myself, why would I want to keep Drea? She doesn't seem loyal to anyone, and in a tribe so small with only 6 people and now 5 people in it, loyalty should be the most important thing. Surely, Dino, what was your take on this tribe as a whole? And am I completely on my own thinking that Drea's overplaying very hard? Like the best players play this hard, and if it works out, she's going to go all the way.
It's such a double-edged sword, yeah, because the opposing argument is, yes, because it's a smaller tribe, there's nowhere to hide. People want safety. So if you're driving in a direction and people are going, well, geez, it's not me, because it's a 1 in 5 shot at going home and somebody's driving this way, I'm going to hop on that bandwagon to be safe. It's a good way to remain safe if you are in the driver's seat, because if you're not driving it, somebody else is, and if somebody else is driving it, then, well, now all of a sudden you've got a 1 in 4 shot when there's 5 left because that person's driving. So I still think that Drea's in a good position. I think physically she's clearly physically strong, but I don't think she's as threatening as like a Roxroy, or visually to what the tribe may see. So if they want to take out a physical threat, they'd go for Roxroy, who's more of an abrasive character anyway. So she's got the physicality that's an asset and not a liability at this stage. Socially, she seems to have a bit of social influence at this stage and a bit of agency. We'll see more in the next episode when people start questioning, the hows and whys, and we get a bit more insight into them trying to dig for information out of her about what happened at the first challenge, and a bit more about Shipwheel Island, I suppose. And we'll see what agency she has. But the fact that she wasn't a target, even though doing those things, or going to Shipwheel Island, I think it shows that she has a bit of agency in this tribe. So I'm thinking that Drea's in a good position, and the other one that I'm thinking is in a good position is Swati. To have this. Twitter's going on about it, how like super fans and like your nerdier type of castaway, or they tend to be at risk earlier on in the game, and you see Zach fall to this, but Swati was not in the firing line at all, so I think for me those are the 2 players that are in the best position in this tribe.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think Romeo, he did lose someone here, but he does seem to be another person that is kind of like the middle between Roxroy and Drea. It's just how long can he drive that alliance long term. Swati seemed pretty close to Roxroy, even though Roxroy was kind of going into dad mode out there. I think it's quite difficult for you if naturally you're just someone that's used to taking control. You're someone that is used to things happening in a certain way. I mean, Roxroy, to give you guys an idea, is the only person who I believe Redmond couldn't find a photo of before the season. Like, he does not exist on social media. The guy lives his own life. He's off the grid. So he doesn't conform to what Gen Zs or millennials of this time necessarily do. He's going to run his own game out there, and I think it's going to come back to bite him in the butt, being that bossy. But I, for one, for good TV, want to see Roxroy go very far in this season, because I think it will be fascinating to watch. I want Drea to do well, so I hope I'm wrong here. I hope that she does not overplay, but I am fearful that she could be overplaying it very early on here. The good thing is no one seems to be catching on to it outside of maybe Romeo and Tori at this stage, but Tori does not have much capital. She doesn't have much social capital at this stage. I made a point of saying to you, Jake, prior to the season, I think Tori's going to stand out. She's the only blonde this season. She's a good-looking girl. People are going to see her and say she's going to be a threat, and they're going to target her. And she did fall outside of the main alliance. But I do want to move on to the Orange Tribe next. Taku. Now, obviously, Taku also has 5 members left in the game still at this point, but we can talk about even the people that have gone out, and we'll later on talk about them as a whole and what we thought. Obviously, in Jackson's case, he didn't get voted out, so I'm more than happy to dive into that topic off the bat. But what did you guys think about Taku specifically? Who stood out for you, Jake, in this tribe?
Freaking Jonathan, he is a monster in those challenges, man. He was on endurance like when he was like 14, and clearly he took that to heart, and he just said, that's going to be my thing. And just he went beast mode. He was like pulling the boat with everyone on it, like on his own. That was crazy.
Impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. Marianne, obviously, I think she stood out to everyone who was watching, unless you were blind. And she's just very, very charismatic, very emotional. As we saw with the Jackson situation, she was a bit emotional, to say the least. And but overall, I think I really like her. She just seems like a really sweet person. And other than that, I really liked Omar's ostrich shirt. I thought that was really funny. And just that's a very interesting just job, being an exotic animal veterinarian. I didn't know that there were like specific veterinarians out there for that. But yeah, other than that, I think those were the main people that stood out to me.
Dino, what did you think of the Taku tribe? Who are the people that you think are going to be the movers and shakers? And do you think they'll go back to tribal council before the merge?
Hitting me with the big questions. So, I mean, as a character, Marianne, I think social media has gone like absolutely mental over her, and for good reason, and well deserved. Relatable, incredible character. And I think if she can just not let her emotions overwhelm her too much, then it won't be taxing on the rest of the tribe. She's this likable character, and she'll go pretty far. She also knows the game really well, but sometimes knowing the game really well isn't enough, So I'm hoping, as I think is 99% of the viewers, that that she does move and shake and make it a bit deeper. I think somebody like Omar, who's a bit more understated, is probably going to, in my mind, do a bit better in this tribe and stands a better chance of going a bit further. He doesn't seem to be the type of character that will rub anyone up the wrong way. He kind of falls in the middle of all the types of people that are cast. So I think he's going to go the distance. I don't see anybody here really from the first episode being like this big move risk taker. Like we saw Drea, who's just like risk, and like, play hard. I don't see any of those characters here.
I was going to say Marianne, maybe. I was going to say Marianne, maybe to a certain degree, because Marianne, similar to Drea, had the choice to risk her vote, and she did say, I think she brought it up because she said Christians normally play the game and then they regret not taking the risks in the game, and she felt like she was going to do it. And it was interesting because when her, Jenny, and Drea went there, I called it before they made the decision. I said, Marianne and Drea, they're going to play. Jenny is going to use logic, and she's not going to do it. And it ended up playing out that way. So I do think Marianne potentially could play. But you bring up a very valid point, Dino, that I'm very interested. So you want to say something on that?
No. I was just going to say that the one thing with Marianne is I came to play risk it mentality is it's not always the most well thought out thing. It's like that's a fear driven decision making process. And while I'm all about, I definitely am, especially given my experience, was like, you need to make the most of every opportunity. It needs to be an educated decision. It can't be one out of fear, which is, in her case, it's the fear of missing out or the fear of not playing. Sometimes in the game, you have to actively do nothing, and if you actively do nothing as a play, that's still a play, versus doing something for the sake of it, right? So that's the only thing that worried me about the decision-making process. It's going to make her fun and great to watch, but if you approach every decision of like, well, oh no, well, I came to play. If you approach everything like that, then you're not making decisions that are good for your game. You're making decisions out of fear of missing out, That's my
I
only
hear you.
concern behind that process.
Yeah, I think for me, Marianne, I had the same pickup as you, where I thought great energy. She struggles to control herself almost, like, it's boiling out of her how excited she is to be on the show. And I think we as fans of the show, super fans of the show, we can relate to that. But how is that going to grate on people 10 days into the game? If is that going to become an annoyance where people are like, I can't deal with Marianne now, she's just too much for me? Or will being deprived of food bring her down to a level where people will be able to communicate with her a little bit better? Because at the end of the day, the social game is still the biggest game. And if something annoys you out there, it's going to get amplified on a show such as Survivor. My own thoughts of this tribe is that Jonathan, I came into this season thinking he was quite a low pick on my fantasy draft pick as well. Both me and Jake didn't want to touch him because we both thought he was going to stand out like crazy, biggest guy out there, big alpha guy. We know it's not very popular these days to be an alpha guy. So getting him out there on the show, I thought he was going to be a big target just based on that alone. But clearly, he is someone that is a lot more emotionally tapped into people, and he does have a different side, almost like this big teddy bear. So I feel now like Jonathan is my early prediction for a fan favorite. If he makes it through to the merge, he's going to become a fan favorite, and he's going to play this game 2 or 3 times. That's my early calls.
If he keeps coming up with gems like I'm up to 11, dude, and there's like 51 triangles, like 100%. Like for me, that was amazing. That was like awesome. Like the poor dude, it's like, okay, cool. He's definitely got a weakness here and here. And I think actually a moment like that does his game some good because one, he exposes that maybe he's not this triple threat. Yes, he's very clearly a threat in one aspect, but he might be missing, the other 2 pillars. And then, also the awareness to go, hey guys, look, maybe some of us aren't cut out for this. Let's split our skill sets and go do different things. I thought that was brilliant. Like there's an awareness about it and going like, I'm not good at certain things and I'm not going to try pretend that I'm good at certain things. Let me go do what I'm good at and provide for the tribe. It shows like a real, there's an insight there that's really good and a social awareness that's quite brilliant. And I think he both lowered his threat level and increased his stocks as a valuable team tribe mate in that moment of 11. Okay, looks like a bit of an idiot, but okay, let's go help out and do something valuable. So I think he's going to do a bit better than what I also thought he would do preseason.
Yeah, very, very impressed. And then I said that Lindsay, for me, she was going to be someone that will be the Jerry Manthe of this season. I got Jerry Manthe vibes from her. She comes across as a lot more likable immediately, but times have moved on. Like Jerry was a big villain back in season 2, but I think if Jerry had to play the same season now, people would love her from day one, where, I think we've moved on as a society and how we judge strong female players playing this game. But there is a secret scene of Lindsay having googly eyes for Jonathan, and it did remind me kind of the whole Colby Donaldson, Jerry Manthe type of vibe. So I might be onto something there. Omar, very interesting opening line talking about the fact that he wants to be seen as a pigeon, but he's going to be like an owl in the night that will pounce when people don't expect it. It does remind me kind of Toby Vlachos with I'm going to have my guard up, and then they're going to have their guard up, and I'm going to get them to lower it, and then bam, I'm going to come in for the killer shot. So if we look at American editing, Omar could be a potential to go all the way.
Or even Erica.
More recently, Erica, yeah.
Yeah.
Lamb and the Lion. Yep.
Let's hope it's not that obvious. I was overall very impressed by the editing of this episode because everybody got some screen time. I think it was like 2 confessionals across the board at least, and then 1 or 2 people got 3 or 4, which I thought, compared to Australian Survivor, which I know people love it, I'm a big fan of it as well. Australian Survivor's editing is atrocious because there's only like 2 or 3 people that we know will win this season, and luckily this has not happened so far on this one. Now I do want to move on to probably the tribe that's my favorite tribe at this point, and it's the Green tribe. I absolutely love green. Obviously being from South Africa, our national rugby team and cricket team has the green and gold colors. So in this case, I just choose to like the green more so. Dino, who in the Green tribe, Jake, is standing out for you at this stage, and who are you liking coming in? You had a couple, both your number 1 guy and girl pick. They're both in this Green tribe.
I gotta say, I honestly like everyone. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but like they all honestly stood out to me in one way or another. Mike, I know you were very low on him coming into the season. You were shocked that I even took him. I even took a chance on him, but I thought he did pretty damn well. like it's such a cool comparison. One thing I will say that I like about them kind of doing the same stuff as 41 is we got the Sweat and Savvy, same one, with the pot where you have to fill it up. And I remember last season, Voce, they elected him to do it, and he was just like, well, okay, guess I
Guess
gotta
I'll go.
do it then.
Yeah.
I got, sure, fine. Like, I'll be away from my tribe, which is, horrible. But Mike, they wanted him to do it, and he was just like, no, I don't think so. I think we should all do it as a tribe. And they were just like, okay, sure. Like, I just thought that was great. Like, it wasn't even like he had to really fight for it. Like, he just immediately, boom, got his way. I thought that was pretty.
What I like about Mike is that he is very socially aware of how people perceive him. And and I fell into that trap myself when we did our preseason thing. I was like, this guy looks too rugged. He's another alpha kind of guy. I don't know how he's going to fit in. He's an older guy, maybe from a different generation. How's he going to fit in with this tribe? And then clearly he knows people are going to see him that way. And he's working very hard to get that perception that people may have of him changed. And I think that's a skill set that's so valuable. And I don't know, Dino, if you can talk to this a little bit, how important is perception management out there and being self-aware as to how other people are potentially going to see you in the game?
Yeah, it could be the difference between being on the jury and being a pre-merge boot, So, yeah, perception management is actually everything, because we dude, it's such a cliched line, but it's the absolute truth. Perception is reality out there. Understanding how people perceive you is one thing. Understanding how people perceive each other is another thing. Like, for me, it's all about the social game, right? So if you're able to, one, understand how they perceive you, you can behave in a certain way or predict certain things that might come from other players, or you're able to do certain things that changes that perception and drives that narrative in a different direction, and that's where we'll see how good a player you are, whether you can use your knowledge of that perception and drive that to the benefit of your game. Because just knowing what people might think of you and knowing what they think of each other isn't actually enough. Being able to dictate what happens thereafter is where the good players come through. So it'll be interesting how he uses that social awareness. But like Jake says, I mean, credit to him where he says, no thanks, guys, and nobody actually bats an eye, and they stick together, stick it out. I guess it was also because maybe there wasn't another, by viewpoint, another visually physical male out there that made that a bit easier. If this guy's not going to do it, well, nobody's going to do it. So maybe that played a part. But yeah, kudos to him for his social awareness so far.
Jake, who else in this Green Tribe? I know I sort of jumped in. Who else really stood out for you? And I agree with you, Mike. I was too low on him. I don't want to jump ahead of where you're maybe thinking, but I actually think Mike is probably the top male between him and High in that team at the moment. I think High still, I'm very happy with High as my first guy pick and my preseason winner pick. We know I've got a very good record with preseason winner picks. I hope I didn't predict incorrectly here, but still, I'm very happy with High as well. But I feel like Mike he's doing pretty well. I definitely had him too low. Who else were you impressed with in this Green Tribe?
I know that social media is kind of going crazy over Jenny as well. And I got to say, I'm maybe not quite as high as they are, but I definitely can't deny that she did great. She kind of led the charge on the Savvy challenge in order to get their supplies. And then she went to Shipwheel Island, and although she didn't get an advantage, she just decided to play it safe. Nothing wrong with that. It's day, what was it, like day 2, day 3? Like, come on.
Yeah.
I think she has a very level head and just said, okay, there's plenty more game left to play. Let me just get through this. And I really like that. So I think Jenny is probably the number 1 or number 2 person that stood out to me on the tribe.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Jenny was my number 1 female pick for this season coming in as well. So I feel good about both my number 1 and 2 picks. I think Daniel Dino is someone that stood out. Obviously, he went for a bit of a journey. Like, I don't know if there was anybody else that I know Survivor US does this every season. They try and pull at your heartstrings, similar to Australian Survivor sometimes. And it's just, people out there struggling. But I mean, I really felt for him and the story that he went through as a kid. You don't want kids to go through what he had to go through. And now he's out there playing the show and then nearly gets evacuated immediately in the first episode. He had such a journey and he just seems like such a lovable guy. I am worried for him because I don't know if that shoulder is completely healed. It looked like he was struggling with it throughout the whole episode. What did you think of Daniel and anybody else there in the Green Tribe?
So, yeah, Daniel concerns me because we see the medical team say you need to look after it because it can pop out again. If they aren't avoiding tribal council and he's not able to give everything and he can't fill a gap in perhaps like the puzzle portion of the game, which there's clearly astute, intelligent, sharp people who can take care of that portion of the game in their tribe, so they don't necessarily need skill sets from him. And if he can't bring some level of physicality because of his shoulder, I'd be concerned for his position in the game pre-merge. But if he sneaks into merge, that lowers his threat level on many fronts, so it might actually end up working for him. But it's got to be really difficult for him at this stage to have that at the back of his mind, have this injury early in the game, have to try and manage it, but want to give you all, want to be valuable. That's going to be, as much as it's a physical hindrance, it's also going to be mentally very, very taxing, and it might drive a bit of paranoia. It might drive a different type of strategy. He might have to play a little bit harder or feel like he has to play harder. So, I mean, I love the guy and I connect with him, and you can only support somebody like him, particularly, like you say, with his story and now with his opening issues, or in the first episode. But I do worry for him. I love him and I hope he goes far, but I am a bit worried for his position if they do go to tribal council.
Yeah, seems to be the person probably that's going to be in the biggest danger in that tribe. I feel like the rest of them are doing really well. And yeah, I just feel for him because you can just tell he's another fan that's gone out there. He's had a dream about playing the show and, pops his shoulder, something that can happen that you don't have control over so early in the game. And now it potentially could put him out of the game. Now, I do want to talk about, guys, the two people that ultimately are going to get voted out here this episode. And that's both Zach and Jackson. Let's start with Jackson. Obviously, quite an interesting topic. I don't know if I'm too qualified to talk about it myself, but I'll try and give a very unqualified opinion about what happened on the show. I've gone through a journey myself when I saw what happened with Jeff going out on day 2 and pulling him from the game. I know online the support for him is very strong, and I think what he went through is he's got such an inspiring story for people out there that are going through a similar situation to him, where he had some struggles with his dad accepting him, his mom passing away. He got close to his dad through that, obviously, and then he goes out and plays this game, but he's not honest about a condition that he's got or something that's going on prior to going on the show. And the fan in me can't help but feel like he took that opportunity away from someone else. And I do feel like, we could have seen someone else on the show. He took that opportunity to be selfish. But then again, if I was in his shoes, I can't say I wouldn't have done the same. It's a very difficult scenario, but ultimately he does get pulled out of the game here. Dino, as someone that's been on the show before, you probably have a better understanding as to how good a show can medically look after you and if you've got certain requirements and things like that. I know this is a difficult topic to talk about, but how do you feel about the fact that production had to make a call here and they were like, listen, you weren't upfront and honest about this. We need to pull you out of the game and we're gonna call it here.
Yeah, so I've got fairly strong opinions on this because I've seen a lot of people online going, oh, production have just used his story, gave him 48 hours. They're just trying to milk it for the PR. And although there's like a small area that's saying that, like, I detest that like beyond belief, because this is not a production at fault thing. Like, I know for a fact production protects the players and the casters as much as they can. And to anyone who has aspirations of being on the show, let this be a lesson. And from somebody who's been cast on one of the iterations of the show, please take this like very, very seriously. Transparency through the casting process is absolute key, because if they like you, they will find a way to work with you and keep you safe, So had Jackson, I feel, maybe been upfront and honest about trying to wean himself off something like lithium, which he's spoken about quite openly and honestly, I think the production, with the medical team, would have had time to work through it with him and go, right, okay, we know these are the side effects. when you do wean yourself off the physical, these are some of the physical things that you can experience. It might not be safe, and they might advise to stay on the lithium and monitor him in the game on that. They might not say this is a deal breaker. Well, you need to get off and come back in 2 years' time. Oh no, we know you've got this mental health issue. We're never going to cast you. It's not like that. I mean, casting is very aware that people have, whether it's mental health history, whether it's physical ailments. Sorry, excuse my cat. Yeah, production does what they can to protect this player. So Jackson, and from what I've read, Jackson has been accountable to this and hasn't denied it, and has said, look, I mean, he understands that it had to happen the way it did, and knowingly 24 hours before saying, hey guys, by the way, I've been reading myself off this stuff, he knew that there was a potential issue with this, and only released that information right before when he couldn't be replaced.
Yeah.
So that was a conscious decision. This is not a production at faulting. This is a Jackson needs to be accountable, and he has been.
And Jeff did say. I was going to say, Jeff also said, I was happy to have this conversation behind closed doors. This didn't need to. He actually says it in the show. I watched it for the second time. He said, this could have been a behind the scenes conversation, but you're happy for us to air this. Basically, there was that conversation that happened as well when they were talking. So it's not like Jeff was thinking, rivet. Like, obviously, they have the camera there, because anything that happens on Survivor, you would imagine they're always going to have the camera there, but they would always ask someone, what do you feel comfortable with? What don't you feel comfortable with? The only other thing that I can think of is how much backlash production had back in the day when the whole thing with Zeke happened. But there would have been conversations prior to that to say, Zeke, are you comfortable with us airing this? Like, I'm sure if Zeke said, I'm not comfortable with this, it wouldn't have made air. And I'm sure it's the same here. These are very serious things that we're talking about. It's not this person stole that person's idol, or did something gamey or something. This is real life stuff, and I don't think that they would have made it a TV moment if Jackson didn't feel comfortable about it. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and I think production handled it as well as they could have.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that, and like I said, I mean, I feel like you're right. I've seen the Twitter. I think it's a Twitter tweet that Jackson said, like, he did take the opportunity away from someone. He was a bit selfish. He appreciates that and he apologizes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to hold it against him. Listen, I can't say that if I was in his position, I wouldn't have done the same thing. Like, who knows? We're all human. This is something you want to get on. He's applied before the show before. He finally got the call. Probably should have been open, like you said, Dino, from the start, but was afraid he was going to get kicked out of the program and wanted to go through. So I can't, in good faith, if I haven't lived in his shoes, going through that situation, I cannot say I would have acted any differently. But that's my take on it. It's a tough topic, but I'm glad we addressed it. It was one of the topics I didn't really want to talk about too much on the podcast, but I'm glad we addressed that. Jake, how do you feel about Zach's game and Zach getting voted out here? He was someone you were quite high on. I believe you picked him as your third guy in the picks. What could Zach have done any differently here in this position? Where did he go wrong?
I just think he needed to just fight harder, honestly. Like, it kind of seemed like he was a bit defeated at camp after the challenge. Like, yeah, I lost I didn't do good on the puzzle. I lost the challenge. Looks like it's going to be me or Tori. It just seemed like he was very, and he even said it himself. He seems to be a very pessimistic person. And we didn't really see too much of him really fighting for his position in the game with the other players. He had like one conversation with Tori saying like, hey, like, it looks like it's going to be me or you, I hope there's no hard feelings. And that was kind of it. Obviously, there's probably more that we're not seeing, but it just seemed like it was kind of a lack of fight from him. And I do think in general, he honestly just got really unlucky because everyone's saying that he, biffed the puzzle. First of all, they were way behind the other two tribes. So, and it looked like he was actually kind of gaining. Like, they weren't close. Let's be real, but they finished like 1.5 sections, which is, for how far behind they were, that's pretty good. Second of all, Swati was also doing the puzzle, so I don't know why she wasn't getting any blame either. It's not like he was doing it by himself. So And it just seemed like that tribe was very, with Roxroy as the leader, very challenge oriented guy. Challenge strength is definitely going to be the most important thing to him. I just think he got kind of a bad draw. Plus, once it was starting to go away from his favor, he didn't really fight too hard from what we saw.
Do you think, obviously we always look at this and you could say, okay, it's the circumstances and you just had bad luck being in that tribe, but him confronting Tori and saying, hey, are you throwing me under the bus? And then telling Tori he's going to go straight at her, do you think that's something that could have sped up the whole thing for him to be voted out a little bit earlier there, where Tori was now aware that he's coming for her? Because he did it. I don't think Tori actually told Drea who the person was that gave her the info that she was looking for an idol. So I feel like Zach kind of, I know it's hard not to be paranoid. You see two people walk off, you think immediately they're talking about me. But clearly there's something there where he played and he told Tori to her face, it's you or me, we're going at it, where that just made Tori aware she's got info that can bury him. And it wasn't going to go well there. I feel like if we have to be critical of his game and it's easy to sit on the side, we don't know everything. That's the one thing I would point out and say that's probably not the best gameplay in that situation.
Yeah, so I suppose that's where social gameplay comes in. It's understanding, how you approach these things and the consequences of having particular conversations, right? And again, like you said, it is very easy sitting here and pointing out flaws, with only X amount of, X bit of information. So I think that could definitely have been a bit of a flaw. But in my mind, I'm going, if you're going into tribal council knowing you're going to play your shot in the dark, you're on the absolute bottom, you're expecting all the votes and you expect your vote not to count, then I 100% agree with Jake. Like, there should be more of a fight, well before tribal council. Even if you're going to throw Tori under the bus, don't tell her and then go for her hard amongst the tribe, or bring Tori in and Swati in and say, like, listen, Swati, your name's also out there because you were on the puzzle. Actually, me, you and Tori need to work together and put votes on somebody. Again, it's so much easier to say from here because there's this, we've got we had more of a bird's eye view of what's happening, whereas, in the game, you've only got your perception and we now know what happens as a result. But I definitely think, with a bit better social gameplay management, he could have this fight. Because like Jake, I don't blame him for the whole puzzle thing. I think there's an element that falls on him because physically he was quite drained going into the puzzle, and he showed it more than maybe Swati did, and that's why there's this perception like he messed up the puzzle. I'm not entirely sure, and that's maybe why he kind of got the heat for that. But I don't blame him for the puzzle loss. They were miles behind anyway. Like that yeah, to catch that up, I wouldn't have expected that from anyone. So I don't know, man. It's so hard. I hate being critical of players who get voted out because I only know so much and I know what I went through, and it's hard. But I do think he led to his own demise on the whole.
And listen, I'll always say on this podcast, and I think I'm more aware because I've interviewed the likes of yourself and other players that have played the game before. You always hear these behind the scenes stories of what was going on, that we, at the end of the day, are only judging people based on an edit. And whenever we say something on this podcast, we appreciate there's a lot we don't know, but it's fun to talk about it. It's fun to try and figure out what was going on there. It's kind of like a murder mystery that we're trying to solve that happened on the island. But Dino, I want to thank you for coming on. If you want to jump off, I know you've got to be somewhere else pretty soon. Myself and Jake, what we'll do is we'll go through our top 3 players that we think played the best game this week. And then if you want to message me on Facebook Messenger who your top 3 is, or you can talk about it if you've got time.
I'm still good for now.
Okay, you're still good for now. Okay, cool.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to ask you as well, just before we go into the top 3, is the role of the die in this specific episode. What do you think of the mechanic of having this die? It's a 1 out of 6 chance for you to be able to be safe. You lose your vote ultimately. Do you like this as a mechanic that is being used in the game, something new in there? Do you think that 1 out of 6 is a good chance for you? You think that that's sufficient for a player out there to take that risk for the vote? Where do you sit on this? Because I haven't spoken to you last season. I'm sure you had an opportunity. I think you were on Shannon's podcast and you would have probably spoken about this. Well, what do you think about this as a game mechanic?
It's interesting, and I'm still not sure whether I love or hate it because it hasn't been used. I mean, only Sydney used it last season, I think. Was it?
Mhm.
No,
Yes.
it was only Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we saw the effects of that because she had to, sacrifice a vote. Always comes at a cost, right? And that vote could have made a difference if it went to the right place. I think if it went on Evie, it would have tied the vote, and then people would have probably voted Evie out. If I remember that scenario correctly, right? So,
Yep.
so the fact that this comes at a price, I do like that, and it's still quite a long shot, and you have to really believe that you are absolutely royally screwed to take this shot in the dark. So you have to have a social awareness to play this correctly in the first place to make it worthwhile giving up your vote so it doesn't have a negative effect on you, and it might save your game. And it also puts pressure on other players to have contingency plans, because should somebody be playing their shot in the dark, is somebody in your alliance feeling under threat, are you going to lose their vote? It has an effect on that. Is somebody who you're targeting going to be safe, and does that put me in the firing line? It does add like all these other things that you need to consider when you go into a vote, which I like, because your strategist will then know how to game this to their favor, and particularly when the tribes are so small. But I don't know if I love it yet. I haven't seen enough of an effect of it. So I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'm kind of like waiting to see if anybody else decides to use it and what effect it has and how it gets used creatively, and then maybe I'll decide. But yeah, I don't know what Jake's thoughts are on it. I haven't heard your guys' takes actually.
Jake, what do you think of the shot in the dark?
Shot in the dark is interesting. It makes you really think about, because last season we saw the Green Tribe with Shan and Ricard. They went to tribal a lot of times, and none of them played their shot in the dark, which is crazy. Like, really, when you think about it, like,
especially for Ginny, in that
yes.
last vote, I was so convinced she was going to play
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Like, and I think that's really a testament to how they played, and they were really able to convince them that there was that high of a chance that they were going to stay, so much so that they shouldn't risk their vote. And here I feel like they didn't really do that at all with Zach, and so he's like, okay, if you guys are going to make it obvious, then I'll just play it. And I don't know, it's making me think like maybe Shot in the Dark is a bit more relevant than we were thinking last season. I think everyone kind of wrote it off as like, oh, it's so irrelevant, didn't do anything. The one person that played it didn't even matter. I don't know. I think in the pre-merge it can be actually pretty powerful, especially with these small tribes. Like, there's not many options, and it can be, you can feel the heat if it's on you and you feel like you're going home, and you might just say, screw it, I'm playing it. I don't care if I lose my vote. So I don't know. For some reason, I just have a feeling that it's gonna be a thing this season. Unlike
I think it's going to play out somewhere down
Yeah.
the line. I think someone's playing it correctly. You look like you have a thought there, Dino.
No, I love that you brought up. I think it was Ua Tribe, the Green Tribe last season.
Mhm.
I love that you brought
Yeah.
that up, and they were like seriously screwed for numbers and got smaller and smaller. And then, like you say, Genie, and then it's actually such a brilliant comparison, because that just highlights the excellent social game being played by Shannon Ricard. Because even at that point, people didn't feel at risk, and they didn't need to take the shot in the dark. And it exposes maybe some weakness in social gameplay from this tribe, because Zach thought nobody was voting for him. His vote didn't matter, and he was just going to take his chance at protecting himself. And and all their votes went on Zach with no contingency. Had his shot in the dark worked,
Yeah.
one of the five of them were going home. Or if one person put their vote elsewhere, it was completely out of your hands. There's no revote. That person goes home. So it really does highlight like both a strategic and a social gameplay difference between the Ua tribe and this tribe now. So I'm glad you brought up that comparison, because yeah, those are things that need to be considered. Manage Zach better so he doesn't play that.
Yeah. I was going to say that to me is why I think that the Blue Tribe have got sloppy players. I know Drea's very loved at this point. I think she's playing very hard, very fast, a little bit sloppy at this stage, but I'm happy to be wrong on that. Very happy to be proven wrong. If she ends up running this game, winning the whole season, that's awesome. That's why I see it. Tori's playing hard and fast and loose, trying to look for idols on day 1, day 2, which is a no-no. Thinking that no one's going to be picking it up. I mean, we've only got fans these days watching the show. Like, how is no one going to pick up that you're looking for idols? I think the person that for me showed the most promise in that tribe was Romeo. He seemed to be the most aware that we need numbers. We need to keep people strong together. He tried to keep Zach safe. The big thing is he couldn't keep the skinny guy alliance going, which is definitely something that could come back to bite him. But I do think he's pretty tight with Roxroy and Drea, so he might still be okay in that spot. Okay, I do want to go into the players this week and who we think our top 3 players for the week would be. Dino, if you had to look at the people on the board, I probably should go back and share these players again so that we can have a nice bird's eye view on everybody here. Who would be the players that you think stand out for you? And I think we'll do a little bit of a snake here, and we'll start with you, Dino. Who do you think played the 3rd best game for you this week and why?
Yeah, let me just start with this. I love this cast. I love everyone as players, and I'm like supporting everyone here. But in terms of players in the best position after episode 1, I am still 3rd best. Sheesh, like I'm oscillating here. There's like a good 6 people that I want to put in there. I quite like. I think Swati for me. I know she hasn't got this overstated edit. It's a bit understated at this stage, but I just think that, I mean, she's clearly super bright. She's aware of her age. She's shown that in her confessionals that she's aware of like perceptions of her and whatnot. And I think she's going to have quite a bit of agency in what is a messy tribe going forward. And I think she's going to make it work for her. I cannot dispute, that Andrea bagging 2 advantages in episode 1, even though I think there was this high risk, like this appetite for risk and go. And that might not always be the best way forward. I can't not mention her to say like, well, you walk away with 2 advantages, and from what we can see, there's no downside right now. That leaves you in a very, very good position. You've got a bit more power in the game than other players, and if used correctly, that should set you up, into a potential merge situation. So I'd say, yeah, she walks away, having played well and gained something amazing.
So Drea's your second?
Yeah, Dre would be my second. And again, like there's so many players here, but I think Jenny, I'm high on. So the one aspect was at the triangle situation, the way she kind of dominated that, I was like, ooh, this could come off bad, but it worked out really well for her and people listened, so she's clearly got agency. And her awareness that when she got to the ship wheel, she didn't just consider the impact like Marianne was like, oh, when am I going to get to do this again? I need to play hard. I came here to take a risk. Jenny kind of assessed what she had learned about the players, walking up there and going like, what decisions are they going to make? And she made the right call. Even though it's a passive call, she played the players and not just the situation. And that's what Survivor's about socially. So walking away with having made that decision, I'm really impressed by that social awareness and that decision, because that is a tough decision to make, really tough decision to make. And I'm super impressed. So ask me again in 5 minutes, I might swap things around, but for now on the spot, that's my top 3.
Okay, so before we let you go, I just want to give you an opportunity, Dino, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast, to let people know anything about where they can find you. There might be some people that have not even seen your season yet, so plug any of your socials and things like that on here now. And do you have anything that you want to make people aware of over in South Africa that they can support you on? I know you run a very successful business over there as well. You might want to plug that at this point as well.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. I mean, if anybody is interested, I'm pretty active and interactive on my socials. So, Instagram at that guy Dino. If you have watched our season or you are going to watch our season, Immunity Island, I mean, please pop me a message. I always reply. I'm always happy to interact with people. So please, feel free, follow me, pop me a message. Same with Twitter. Love it. Love the banter. That's at also Dino. But for me, in terms of awareness, it's just a reminder, like, be kind. I know one of the things that's amazing about Survivor is the speculation, the opinions, you can do this, you should do this, and that difference of opinions and difference of strategies and being critical, that's okay. But you can do that and still be kind and not attack players personally and have a bit of empathy. These are real human beings going through like a really real experience. That's hard and tough for our entertainment. So speculate, share your opinions, fight amongst yourselves. That's amazing. Let's do that. We'll all join in, but just be kind and treat the players with the dignity and respect that they deserve. Because if you're on there one day, and a lot of people have ambitions of being on there one day, you're going to hope for that same dignity and respect to be shown to you. So I think that's such closing thoughts.
I think it's such a valuable message. Play play the edit, not the person behind it. Like, it's a show. Everybody goes out there to have fun, and you're going to do things. You're going to be devious out there. You might not do that in real life. Just understand that it's a game, and I think that's such a great message. Dino, as always, thank you so much for dropping in. I really do appreciate you spending some time with both myself and Jake today to talk about Survivor 42, and no doubt we'll chat at some stage in the near future.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Jake, nice to meet you, and yeah, thanks for the awesome podcast. Thanks for the invite, guys, and look forward to chatting soon.
Thanks, Dino. See you later.
Cheers.
Thank you.
There we have it, Jake. Dino from Survivor South Africa Immunity Island here on the podcast to talk a little bit of Survivor 42, and always so fun to talk to someone who has actually played the game before. I do want to finish it off with our own thoughts here in regards to who we think played the best game. We heard his thoughts there just now. He had Swati in third, he had Drea in second, and in first place he had Jenny. What is your thoughts on the top 3 players for this week?
I think I am going to stray a bit far from him with the fact that I don't think I'm going to include anyone from Blue. I know I was kind of praising Drea earlier, but I just think there was a bit of messiness in the way she played things. So at number 3, I'm gonna have Jonathan.
All right.
Jonathan, yeah, he first of all freaking killed it in both challenges, and even though they didn't win the first one, still really impressive. And he did as much as he could in that first one. He got them the lead that really could have solidified it, and unfortunately Mariah couldn't finish it out, which is fine. But and it just seems like we might have judged him too harshly. I think he's going to be maybe not the best social player, but I think he's more aware than we thought he was going to be. And so far, I just think he's in a good position. I don't see any way that they're going to vote him out if they lose again. I think
I don't see it.
Yeah, I think there's like less than 1% chance that happens. So he's my number 3. Number 2, or did you want me to put all my 3 and then, or did you want to like switch back?
Oh, maybe I'll do third as well, just so that way
right.
we can go back and forth. Okay, so third place for me, I'm gonna go Jenny. It's a tough one, but because I know people are very high on Jenny online. I am very impressed by her. I agree with the take that Dino had on her, that social awareness is so important, and her ability to read, which we've got to appreciate within a very short period of time. I don't know how long it took them to climb up that summit. Maybe it took them an hour, but still within an hour to understand the 2 people that you are there with and to know that they're going to risk their vote and to play the safe strategy here and keep that vote is so important. I think to lose your vote in a tribe of 6 people where you're already at risk of potentially getting voted out if you don't have a vote, it's so important to keep that and to have bargaining power. And I think she made the right move. So that impressed me. She was a rock star in the challenges with the puzzles, getting that sorted very quickly. She didn't get too much screen time. I think 1 or 2 confessionals, but I think she is someone that's going to go very deep in this game. And that's my number 1 female pick for the season. Jenny is my third spot here. Who is your second spot?
For my number 2, I think I'm going to go with Mike.
Yeah, for all the reasons you mentioned earlier about him.
Yep. Yeah, I mentioned earlier. Yeah,
I was impressed by Mike. I think he did a lot better than what I thought, especially the fact that he downplayed the ruggedness, and people seem to look at him as like almost like a dad figure. And I don't think he's going anywhere because he's an absolute physical beast, and they need that in their tribe. So he's kind of like the Jonathan. There's a trend here. You've gone for 2 of the strong alpha male guys very early on here, Jake. It's good. Are you on social, on Twitter? If you're on Twitter, mate, people are going to come for you.
I'm not on Twitter, and that's probably for the best, from what I've heard. It's not really even that like he's the biggest.
That's all right. You've got to type. You've got to type, Jake. It's fine.
Listen, Chris, come on. You know more than anyone, we were higher on the women coming into this, so you can't say that. So
no, definitely. I'm just pulling your leg.
I know.
All right, just going for my second pick, and you're right, it is kind of hard. I am gonna It is tough. Like I'm going back and forth because the edit was so good this episode. There was so many people that were
It really
shown.
was.
I have to I know I've been bagging her quite a bit this episode for maybe playing too hard, too fast, but I have to give some credit to Drea. I have to give her credit. I mean, she's got two advantages. No one knows about it as of yet. And the line between being excellent in this game and going home first is that line that Tony walked. He won one season, he got voted out first in the other season, and I feel like you need that braveness to be a great player. And I think she's got that. She's going to take risks. She's going to play the game hard. Now, I'm very fearful for her that this could blow up in her face and she could be out next week. But based on what I've seen this week, I have to give Drea my second spot. So I'm going to give her some respect and have her as my second choice. Jake, coming back to you for your number one pick, and you've already cut out the whole blue tribe, so you can't jump on the Drea train now. Who are you going to put at number one?
Yeah, no backtracking for me. I'm just gonna stick with probably my favorite tribe so far, Green. My number one, like Dino, is gonna be Jenny.
There we go. I think it's a solid pick. Like we all mentioned, what she did well. I think it's only right that I end my first list with the player that was my preseason winner pick. High is going to be my number one pick. I feel very comfortable about him in the game so far. He seems very cerebral. He understands where people are at within their tribe. Strategy-wise, he's going to sit behind Mike. Mike is going to take the bullets when it comes to merge time if they make the merge together. And I think that he's got a good enough social game that he's going to fit in very well with the women and the guys. Daniel, I'm afraid for. I think he could be out very early on next episode. And because of that, High might have been seen as a physical presence and someone that looks fit and in shape, and that could be a threat. But I don't think they're getting rid of High if Daniel goes next, because they will need some male presence within that Green tribe. And I think High is going to be okay. And he also has an advantage in this game. The biggest downfall for him could be the unpredictable nature of someone like a Drea, who also knows about that information. And if she blows his game up down the line, I don't know. But based on this week, I thought High had a very good start. Those are my number 1, 2, and 3. Very happy to go through this list. And then lastly, we've got to do the honors of removing some players from our draft list just before we get out of here. And I said I was going to fix the heads of some of the people that got cut off, and I didn't get to it. But the first people here that are going to be removed from the list is going to be none other than Jackson, my last pick. And we're going to have Zach as the two people that are first out in this game. We're equal still at this point. It's anybody's game to see who's going to have more people left by the time that we get to the merge. Lastly, for those that are watching and considering subscribing, I appreciate you watching it for this long or listening to the podcast this long. For those that are listening to the podcast, we are growing quite a bit on those numbers as well. Please consider, even if you like the audio version more so, please consider still jumping on the YouTube and giving us a subscription. We are on our way to 500 subs. And when we reach 500 subs, this Australian Survivor merge buff for last season will become available to one of our listeners or viewers of this channel. Very excited about that, because when we hit 500, I can start doing community posts, put polls up, ask you guys what topics you would like us to deep dive into as we grow this channel. We do the Amazing Race, the Challenge, Survivor, all the versions of it for all the international franchises. So I'm very excited as to what the channel can, grow and the potential of it in the future. And also, I am going to put up, Jake, something that I'm probably going to hate myself for doing, because I got my hands on the first 5 merge buffs for Survivor CBS. So if you're someone who loves buffs, when we hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I'm going to do the same competition that I did for this one when we get to 500, and we're going to give away 5 merge buffs to one person. You'll have that collection. And we're going to continue to do incentives and competitions as we grow this channel, but really excited for that. Jake, what's your final thoughts? How are you feeling about this season? Was it if you had to, rank this first episode out of 10, what do you give it?
I think it's a solid 8.5, 8.5, probably.
Yeah.
I think, clearly it's going to have the same kind of flaws as 41. I believe I looked it up beforehand. The time between 41 ending and 42 starting was like less than a week. It was like 6
Wow.
days or something crazy. Like, I think Ricard posted a tweet that said that the day between him getting voted off and Jackson being removed was exactly a week.
Wow.
Like, that's crazy. Goes to show crazy that production can like change the tribal council setup that quickly and like
New
just get
idol
yeah.
and everything, is
They have
ready to
to
go. Challenges,
take
not the
down the
same challenges.
shelters, take down the shelters from
Yeah.
the camps. Crazy. Yeah. So clearly they did not have, any time to really like reflect on, and they're really just embracing the whole like back to back. We're going to keep the same kind of stuff. Hopefully they make some tweaks, especially with the hourglass twist. Pray.
Yeah.
I
Hoping
pray
for the
to
same.
Pray to the survivor gods.
And
that
we will
they
have Danny to
that.
thank if that happened. We'll have Danny to thank.
Yes,
Because apparently he went off at production for that. So hopefully they
He
listen
did.
to him and they're like, nah, we don't
Yeah.
want this in our show.
respect to him for that. Someone had to say it. But in general, I mean, we've already said it. The confessional distribution this episode was just beautiful.
10
Absolutely.
out of 10 production. 10 out of 10 for that.
Everyone got not one, but 2 confessionals. Everyone got 2. That is crazy. And like 3 people got 6, and then everyone got at least 2. Like, awesome. Just awesome. Like,
I'll tell you now, Jake, I'll put $100 bet for anybody that listens to this podcast. You can clip this, you can remember this, come back to this one. If Australian Survivor have one episode where every single castaway before the merge gets 2 confessionals, I will give you $100. For the first person that calls me out on it, I'll give you $100.
I'll give them $1,000. I'll give them everything in my bank account.
Be careful now.
No.
Like, don't go too crazy.
I mean, okay, fine.
You think it's that little of a chance that Australian Survivor will do it? There might be that one person. Okay, yeah,
there's 24. Why. There's like 20 people.
Fair.
I mean, to a point, you do kind of have to understand with Australian Survivor that they can't give everyone, content. That's just not going to happen. Not everyone is relevant, especially when they started with 2 tribes of 12. But still, just bad with Australian Survivor. I love Australian Survivor. I love that it's just unique from US in little ways and big ways, but can't disregard the fact that the editing and the confessional distribution is just really, really bad. I think I will just say, I think you were lowballing it with the 100. I think you could go higher than that.
Listen, I don't want to lose all that money. I'm already giving buffs away. How am I going to buy
That's true. You're giving out.
How am I going to give buffs for the next competition?
Right.
Somewhere you got to stop it.
Yeah.
These things are expensive. Like, just so you guys know, this buff here, which is up for grabs, $750 over in the US on eBay.
He's spoiling you guys. You guys
I'm
better
spoiling
take
you guys.
advantage of
All
it.
you need to do is hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing.
Nope.
Jake, this has been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to next week, where we'll have another special guest on the show to talk Survivor with us, who I don't think I've actually mentioned to you who it's going to be. It's going to be Angel Cake from the YouTube channel for The Challenge. I believe he's probably one of the biggest challenge YouTube channels, but he also watches Survivor, and he will be joining us to talk about Survivor 42 episode 2, and we will be joined by some other international Survivor alumni, which I'm also lining up and working on, and other YouTubers, Survivor YouTubers, at some point will come on the show and talk to me and Jake about this season. So if you're enjoying this, it's a little bit different from maybe all the other podcasts there. We won't be going into the detail always as much. It'll be more about the character moments, the big things that happens, and so forth. I do think that it's more fun when you've got different options. If you want to get that deep strategy talk, game theory, go to RHAP. He's the guy for that. Or Johnny Fairplay. I know he really goes into the game theory as well. I'm just joking. But anyways, I hope you guys go to some of these other channels as well and support them. But thank you for sitting here with me and Jake until this point, and catch you guys next time. Goodbye.